Tony McMichael, I'm just stimulated to respond to this exchange, and there are at least a couple of persons in this room that could comment more expertly than myself, including Terry Hull and Colin Butler. But there has been a concern that, as with all academic disciplines, there are boundaries, there are blinkers. We've talked a little bit about some of the difficulties that economists conventionally have in understanding the true nature of a closed system and ecological processes and exponential impossibilities. One of the discussions that's begun to emerge more recently is what seems to be a constraint on demographers in actually thinking about the implications of population for environmental capacity, if you like, for carrying capacity of the human species. It seems to be outside the boundaries of Demography 101. And I think it is one of those structural issues that we have to deal with in the composition of our academic armamentarium. We're dealing with a lot of disciplines that have tight boundaries around them, and they're finding it quite hard to look across those boundaries and incorporate other dimensions into the way their discipline could then contribute to what is a very complex, multi-sectoral, multidisciplinary issue. So I'd at least just note that there is that critique emerging of conventional mainstream demography. I don't know if others in the room would like to comment on it, but I think it's one of the problems we've got to deal with.
Yeah, that's a good comment. I wonder if perhaps we should have anybody else who wants to comment on the same topic.
Monica Bhatia, I'm from Sydney. I would like to address my question, my observation to both the speakers. The issue of sustainability is very important. But what I'd like to know in terms of practical strategies as to how we are mobilizing, or how we can mobilize young people, that is Generation X, Generation Y, and the Generation Z, to conform or to adopt values that we are talking about, because it is easy for us to sit here as baby boomers and say that, yes, we've had a good life, and now you must control your consumption, or conserve energy, or conserve, spending. So could you please tell me, in the ANU, for example, the student movement, how much of the student population have you mobilized? And could Katherine please tell me what are the practical strategies you have recommended or submitted to the government or community organizations in your particular role? Thank you.
Sure. Do you want to go first? That's a very good question, and I think that it's fair to say that, well, comment perhaps, how do we go about engaging the younger generations in these issues and battles? How do we get them engaged in issues of population and consumption, reducing consumption and population? I think it's probably fair to say that NGOs across the board and charitable causes across the board are having trouble getting young people engaged face-to-face. A lot of young people now are quite happy to give money to good causes, and they're wealthy enough to do that, but a lot of them don't actually want to get engaged face-to-face. They see their contribution as, we've given you the money, you go away and do it. So that's tricky, but it's not a hopeless situation. One of the things the ACF's been concentrating on quite a bit is trying to use technologies that young people use. They respond far better to some technologies than others. They don't respond to the written word very well if they see it in front of them, as a magazine, but they respond very well to text messages and to, to the internet and so on. So we've been exploring those sorts of mediums. And I guess, look, we have had to try and become a lot more creative about the sort of programs that we're running. And so, for example, we have a green home program that we're running now in quite a number of states, which looks at ways to reduce consumption in the home, and that's been very successful, and it has a young demographic involved as well. So it's a complex problem, though.
Just a couple comments in response to your question on the tertiary sector, and I'll speak for ANU, but I think it's mirrored in other universities as well. We are changing education in response to the sustainability challenge. Our school has developed a degree called the Bachelor of Integrated Studies Sustainability degree, which cuts across 4 or 5 of the 7 colleges at ANU and tries to tackle precisely the problem that Tony McMichael raised of so much of our knowledge is in disciplinary silos, and the problems demand that we get across those. In addition to that, we have a thing called the Sustainability Learning Community, which is actually run by the students and deals with a lot of practical things, from garden, how you grow your own food, to how you reduce energy consumption and so on. And that's growing exponentially in popularity in terms of the number of students that are getting involved in that. My own school is trying to become carbon neutral as fast as we can. We've got some constraints. Because unfortunately the way our economic system is set up, to become carbon neutral costs you a lot more money than your university budget has at its disposal, but nevertheless we're trying to do that. And probably the most important thing is the fundamental education in the humanities and indeed in the health sciences, like in Tony's Center, where we're exploring concepts like why aren't we moving toward concepts of well-being rather than wealth? Because it's really well-being that we're after as humans. And we've got hooked on this thing that the wealthier you are, the better off you are in terms of well-being, and that obviously isn't true. And there's some very good scholars, many of them are in Tony's area, who are exploring that. So we're doing it at a number of levels to try to address exactly that sustainability issue.